Hello again, Raisa Shafira Affandi here. In this session, we're unraveling poetic time. Let's get started. Our learning objectives for this module are 1. To gain an awareness of how the chronology of images and ideas in a poem affects the reading experience. 2. To gain an awareness of tenses in poetry and how this affects the reading experience. And 3. To gain an awareness of the speed of time in poetry and how this also affects the reading experience. First, let's talk about the poetic timeline. When you read a poem, you usually read it from beginning to end. This means there is an order in which the poem's images and ideas appear in your head and interact with each other. When you read, try being aware of which images appear first and which appear later. Is there a moment in the poem that creates a sudden change in these images in your head? How does this affect your reaction to the poem? For example, in this poem Praying by Mary Oliver, which images come first and which come next? You may notice, first the poem talks about what something doesn't have to be, and then some actions, and then what it isn't, and then only, finally, what it is. It doesn't have to be the blue iris, it could be the weeds, a few false moons, and then the action. Just pay attention, patch a few words together, don't try to make them elaborate, and then what it isn't, once again, it isn't a contest, but what it is the doorway into thanks and a silence in which another voice may speak. So what is the effect of explaining something using images of what it isn't first? Is it perhaps easier to contrast it with what it actually is and makes the final meaning of what it is more intense? Everyone can have their own interpretation. You can also think about tenses. What tense is the poem in? Do its events happen in the past, present, or future? How does this affect your reaction to the poem? For example, poems written in the present tense create a sense of immediacy and direct engagement with the subject matter, making the experience of reading the poem feel like a live moment. This tense choice can also help the reader connect more deeply with the speaker's thoughts and feelings, as if they are happening alongside the poem's creation. So, for example, this poem talks about a hypothetical situation in the future. It says, you'd never call the branches, and you'd never do this and that. But then it says, won't you do this? Won't you learn to call it blessing later, to supple the muscles of his cracking hips tear? Now, how does this affect your relationship to it? Was the first parts of you'd never do this and do that far away, but the second part feel more closer to you? Won't you learn to do this? What is its effect on the poem? You can also think about how time moves or time travel within the poem. For example, in this poem titled Street Food, it's just a list of very different things. There's the new road, the adder of grass, there's the fish whiff of anchovy, NYC glizzies, the corn dog. Does that feel like events and images are passing quickly or slowly through your mind? Is the time continuous, or does it feel like some events are skipped? And most importantly, how does this affect how the poem makes you feel? Let's review what we've learned. When reading poetry, you can think about the following aspects related to time and see how it affects your reaction to the poem. First, the poetic timeline, or the chronology in which images and ideas appear in your head. How does this affect how each image interacts with each other? Then we have tenses. Does it happen in the past, present, or future? Is it something that won't happen, will happen, could happen, and so on? Then time travel. How quickly is time moving within the poem? That's it for poetic time. Next time you read a poem, notice its timeline, tenses, and pacing. They can shape the whole experience. See you in the next session.